Good evening and welcome to Rotary District 5030 Training Festival 2020. This evening you are attending a session on training healthcare professionals on sex trafficking, identification, and response. I'm very excited to introduce our presenters, Virginia McKenzie from Seattle Rotary 4. And then we also have Rebecca Fondon, who is the healthcare coordinator for Seattle Against Slavery. And so Virginia and Rebecca have put together a pretty awesome presentation for you. This session is being recorded in case you would like to share it later on. It will be on the district YouTube page. Also, if you have a question during tonight's webinar, please use the Q&A section or little sign at the bottom of your page to ask a question, and you are welcome to ask questions, and we'll get to as many as possible during this session. Also, Virginia will be emailing out to everyone who participated this evening with additional information and to thank you for your participation. So at this point, I will be turning off my camera. I'm Lisa Edwards from the University District Rotary Club as your tech person this evening. And I'm going to turn off my camera so you can focus on Virginia and Rebecca.
Hello, fellow Rotarians and friends. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'd like to start our presentation with our vision from Rotary International. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Goals for this webinar: I want you to feel a sense of pride about how Rotary is responding in the fight against sex trafficking. I know that this is a difficult topic, and I know at the end of this session, you are going to just feel really proud and pleased of what District 5030 is doing to help things. At the end of the session, I will share a list of small, powerful takeaways. And I wanted to start off with my passion. Everybody wants to know, Virginia, why are you so passionate about the fight against sex trafficking? And the best way that I can tell that story is it all started in 2014 with a presentation at Seattle for Rotary from Stolen Youth. And at that meeting, I learned, I knew that sex trafficking happened, but in my mind, I hadn't thought about it that much, and it was kind of an over there problem. Like, oh yeah, that happens in Southeast Asia and in India. Oh yeah, and this presentation for the first time made me keenly aware that this was happening right here in my own backyard in Seattle with local children by local people, and I just saw red. It just made me so mad and sad. So I had to find a way to get involved. So I spent lots of time meeting all the everybody's in the greater Seattle area working on this topic of sex trafficking and figuring out what they need and what they do and working to make connections. And I feel so emboldened doing this work with Rotary, and I know that it's increasing the impact, and I'm so excited to tell that story with you today. So an overview of for this evening, I want to give some huge thank yous to the Rotary clubs and a few key individuals who played key roles in this grant. I'm going to give you an overview of what the Healthcare Alliance is and why we're supporting it. I have some very fun historical photos of Rotarians directly involved in the Healthcare Alliance. Hopefully some of you are on this call. I'm sure you will recognize these individuals. And then I'm going to turn it over to our partner, Rebecca Fondon from Seattle Against Slavery. She's been delivering these training seminars to healthcare professionals and is give us an update on all of the great work that they've been doing. And then we'll have time for questions and answers. So, So over the course of 2 years, all in project is a $28,000 effort. And Seattle 4 Rotary is the lead club. Thank you, Seattle 4 Rotary. And we are joined by Seattle City Rotaract, his grant. And as I am the club liaison between Seattle 4 and Seattle City Rotaract, and it is a little Rotary dream come true that we are partnering on projects together financially and with hands-on service in incredibly meaningful ways. That is a Rotary come true for me. We have and direct support from Mill Creek Rotary, and in addition to the Healthcare Alliance, I'm very proud that Mill Creek Rotary has been supporting the fight against sex trafficking in their own ways. They had a beautiful hands-on service project at Peoria Safe House in Everett, where they restored a garage into a craft center, exercise area, bonus room for a safe house up there. And support West Seattle Rotary, and moral support, and district matching funds. All in, it's a $28,000 effort. And there's a couple of key individuals I'd like to thank. First is our district elect, Kathy Gibson, who back in 2014, in all of her wisdom, said, Virginia, you can't be a free agent. You're a Rotarian with a mission. You need to join one of the service committees. You can put yourself up for grants, and people can find you on an org chart. I'm very grateful to Kathy that she suggested and enrolled me in the Peace Builder Committee. I would also like to thank Dorothy Bullitt. She directly supported and also has been a huge moral support. Every time I cross paths with her at Rotary, she looks me square and says, keep up the good work, and I know what she's talking about. I would like to thank Corinne Kavanaugh. She is my moral support in all of this. Sometimes I get sad thinking about it, and she's helpful. Geraldine Bruno is key. So early on, I let her know that I wanted to care about the fight against trafficking, and she made a key introduction to me to the founder of Stolen Youth, who made the presentation at our Rotary Club in 2014 and opened up all of these very powerful relationships so I could do our work. And also Kathy Burnell. Kathy Burnell is our district's grant chair, and I had never done a district matching grant before, and she was incredibly helpful and patient and there with me, you know, stride by stride, helping me really maximize the impact we had. So there's many, many others of you out there that I could go on and thank you for all the work that we've done together. So the Healthcare Alliance, what is it and why do we support it? So the idea is, it is known from talking to survivors of trafficking that over 85% of them access health care while being trafficked, often to emergency medical services. They live a very difficult life. They often are getting beat up, drug overdoses, suicide. They're leading a very rough life. And so the idea is what if our medical professionals, doctors, nurses, healthcare staff could be trained to notice the signs and knew how to respond. Some of the key signs of trafficking are things like brand tattoos or being accompanied by a hyper-vigilant, usually older male that presents as a love interest or a family member, but doesn't basic information about the patient. These are some key indicators of trafficking in a healthcare environment. So what can our healthcare providers do if they notice these signs? How can they respond? And it's tricky because it's important, it's vital that they respond in a trauma-informed and HIPAA-compliant way. It is very delicate, and it is so that is what this training is all about. And I'm so pleased that Rotary is doing this because it's education, and this results are so incredibly sustainable, and that once our healthcare system starts adopt this curriculum, and all the doctors and nurses that get trained on this, no matter where they go in the rest of their professional career, they're going to bring this knowledge with them. And so
Excuse me, Virginia.
Yes.
This is Lisa. If you could please stop moving around because your microphone is breaking up. So please stay still, and it will be a much better recording, and everyone will be able to hear you. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Thank you for the tip. So with that, I'm going to share some photographs of Rotarians. So we had our first summit in January 2019. On the left, that is me, Virginia McKenzie. Next, we have Robert Beiser. He is the executive at that time. He was the director of Seattle Against Slavery. He now works at the Polaris Project, which is the national trafficking hotline, bringing all of the intelligence and know-how and all of the amazing things we're doing in Seattle. He is bringing them nationally. It is a huge thing to be proud of. And our sponsorship is right behind him there, Seattle for Rotary. Next, we have Paula Houston. She's a Seattle for Rotarian, and she is the Director of Equity at UW Medical. She is responsible for helping make sure that everybody that comes through UW Medicine has an equitable outcome. And what a wonderful addition to the Healthcare Alliance. Next, we have Ben Wicks, a Seattle for Rotarian, who has also had access to key introductions in major players in the fight against sex trafficking. On Saturday, you'll hear more from Rescue Freedom. I'll tell you more about that at the end. Next, we have Delani Gahn. She is a Seattle City Rotaractor and as a data analyst at a professional services firm focused on healthcare. So excited for her to participate. Next, we have Jan Martinka. Jan is a member of Kirkland Rotary. Hopefully she the webinar today. She is a doula nurse and has definitely let me know that she has seen patients coming through Evergreen treatment she thought may be suffering from trafficking. And when she heard this alliance, she jumped on it. Next, we have Nancy Pasternak. I am sure many of you recognize Nancy. She is a prolific Rotarian from Rotary. Back in the day, she was the executive director of a domestic violence shelter, and she has been helpful in all kinds of ways, this project and others. So that is us in 2019. Here we are in January 2020. So we have the Rotary logo there for the sponsorship. I'm seeing that on the left. On the far left, we have Reka Matthew. She's a member of Seattle, and she is a she's at Kaiser Permanente and now a MBA student just graduating from the university. We have Delani Gahn. Again, she wins the prize for attending both summits. Thank you for your continued participation. Megan Milk, also a member of Seattle City Rotaract, who has been hugely helpful in a million little and big ways on many in the fight against sex trafficking. We have my friend Penny Moyer. She was an ER nurse in Tacoma, and one of the first people that I told her about the terrible things that I learned, and she was one of the first people who just got it, was like, yeah, that happens here. I know what that is. Next, we have my sister, Samantha Atchison, who is a nurse for Evergreen Treatment Center. My friend Kelly DeBruni. Jerry Eureka, he is a member of Mill Creek Rotary. He is a general practice in Snohomish County who has had incredible insights. And then I'm on the right there. There's a couple of key people that are not in these photographs that I want to give a call out to, and that is the Seattle Fire Department. So, in 2019, I'm proud to say the Seattle Fire Department was early adopters of this curriculum, and as an intervention point, as of May of last year, 2019, well, first I'll say this is thanks to Seattle 4 Rotarian and Fire Chief Harold Goggins, who learned about this training and got it out to his 1,100 firefighters and EMTs. As of May 2019, they had already correctly identified 4 girls and recommended them to services and or their families. And also in 2019, the director of UW, rather Harborview Medical Emergency Mitchell. And I'm mentioning these names specifically because I want to point out the power of our Rotary network. I know that I often think of service as hands-on service or raising money. What I'm trying to illustrate with these photographs is it's not just about hands-on service and raising money, but it's about powerful connections. And all of the Rotarians have powerful connections that have been activated in this alliance for maximum impact. So when you're thinking about projects that you're working on, I encourage you to think about who you could engage, not just from hands-on service and fundraising, but who is in a profession that could directly help them. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Rebecca Fondon from Seattle Against Slavery, who's going to tell us more about the actual details of the project. Rebecca.
Awesome, thank you. I am going to try to get my screen up. So let me make sure.
So Lisa, do I press stop share or does she take over?
Stop sharing, please. There you go. And Rebecca will be coming up.
Okay, let's see. Okay, can everyone see the screen okay?
We're seeing all of, go to slide presentation. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Okay, perfect. So there's no dancing. Now I know that. So if I get interrupted or it's fuzzy, just let me know. And maybe Virginia, if you have any comments, if you want to check the messages and if there's any anyone who's making comments, maybe you can check that and just let me know if someone has questions or anything. So yeah, it's wonderful to meet everyone. Thank you for showing up tonight. My name is Rebecca Fondon. I'm the Healthcare Alliance Coordinator for Seattle Against Slavery. I have been with the HCA now for about a year and a half. So kind of backstory a little bit. I was a student at the University of Washington and I was finishing up my communication and business entrepreneurship degree. And I was looking for an internship and I found the CSEC task force for the Superior Court and I attained a 9-month internship through them. And during that time, I was able to meet all of the stakeholders within the community, Seattle Against Slavery being one. And so while I was in school, they actually hired me to help build this training. So I helped build the slide deck and the content and help run the committees that we had surrounding this and all the people who helped develop it. I was able to be a really big part of it. And after we were done developing this and writing a script and getting this turned into a webinar, they hired me after I graduated to actually go and do these trainings. So I have had, the great opportunity to get out into our communities and just meet all the people from the first lines and our first responders who deal with victims of human trafficking and to be able to teach them how to respond in a trauma-informed way. And Virginia had said, one of the reasons why the HCA, the Healthcare Alliance, is so important is because 88% of trafficking victims see a healthcare facility during the time they've been trafficked, and only 3% of healthcare professionals actually have had some form of human trafficking training. So thank you so much to the Rotarians who have, given the money to this program so that this could actually be developed and be implemented. It's made a huge difference in our communities so that every child who walks through the door of a facility has a provider who can actually meet them right where they're at, and they're able to help them. So that's been really amazing. The Healthcare Alliance, a little background on this program, it started about 3 years ago. Claudia Lawrence, our community mobilization director, and Robert Beiser began kind of building this program. Over the course of the first year, they were building this training and actually going out into the community and doing the trainings. And then it kind of fell over into my lap. And so then I was able to run the program. But I believe over the course of the first year, and we'll go into that a little bit more later, they were able to train around 550 healthcare providers. So that's huge. Social workers, staff that are in healthcare facilities, university students. So it's been really, really amazing. I already had mentioned this, but I want to read this quote to you. This is one of the reasons why this is really so crucial and so important. During the time, this is a quote from a survivor. During the time I was trafficked, I frequently had, can't see this, I had contact with healthcare providers, doctors, and nurse staff. I never felt like I had access to help through them. I was never asked if my history of abortions, infections, or STDs were a result of trafficking. I felt judged and alone. So our goal with the HCA was to really shift this narrative so that when a survivor does, walk into the doors or a victim of human trafficking, like I said, they're met with someone who is able to provide them help. So some of our initial goals with this program were that we wanted to do a 30-minute, 1 hour, and 90-minute training. And over the course of the trainings, and the more we talked with and met with healthcare providers, we realized that we needed to dig a little bit deeper into what trauma-informed care is. the laws behind human trafficking, whether they're a mandatory reporter or not. So most of our trainings became about 2 hours long. And in the first couple of years, we did free trainings, which was really awesome, that we were able to provide those to our community. And just in this past, I would say about 8 months, we started charging around $200 to sustain the program. And people have been more than happy to provide that to this program so that it can be sustained and keep going. So that's been really exciting. We really wanted to focus initially on healthcare facilities, hospitals, and clinics. And we were able to do that. And I'll go over some of the places we were able to get into. We also were able to get into universities, which was really awesome because, you know, the people who are in college, they're so passionate and so eager to get into their facility and really be a champion of some of these efforts. So that's been really awesome. So within the first year, in order to develop this training, it took a lot. So we had to build a full steering committee, and that was comprised of 3 subcommittees. So the first full steering committee kind of like made all the executive decisions, whatever we had come up with in the subcommittees, the full steering committee would make decisions on so we could push that forward. So we had a training webinar committee, and so these were the people who would come in, take time out of their day, sit down with us and talk to us about all of the content that we were actually putting into the webinar. They helped find some of the actual true cases of human trafficking that have happened, you know, nationally. So we were able to actually present true cases to providers. We developed protocol so that hospitals can actually implement kind of an algorithm, like, you know, if this, then that, into their facilities. There are some protocols that we present to them that they can follow that are already implemented, but we were able to, with the help of others, create one that they can use if they want. We also did data tracking. We had a subcommittee that built a way to track data. So initially we were wanting to collect, you know, how many trafficking victims came through a door? How many did you see? It was really hard to capture that data just because of lack of response, and it's really hard to get data of CSEC victims of our youth. But we were able to gather data surrounding our training and the usefulness of it and the effect of it. So we have a lot of that if anyone's interested in that. So year 1, we had a lot of different deliverables. We were able to develop the training. I actually just recently had an actor do a voiceover for free, which was awesome, for the webinar. So it is now a video. It's able to be released. It's sustainable past my position. So even if, you know, the HC isn't continued or I leave my position, this is something that was created and funded by Rotary that will be sustainable throughout the years, which is so amazing. We were able to develop the protocol that was finished. Let's see, the data collection tool, like I had said, I am a survivor of trafficking myself when I was younger. And so I actually had the privilege to lead a survivor group. I found different survivors in the community and was able to sit down with them and make them a part of this process from the beginning to the end. And that's been an issue that we see within our communities, is asking a survivor for their input and then saying thank you, and now we'll go and create what we need to create. And so we were able to have, you know, their voice in this so that we can really be able to deliver to providers something that's real. So that was really awesome. We really wanted to train nurses, and this is something that not only we had a difficult time getting into schools, everyone I've talked to, it is so hard to get into schools. So we did have issues with that, but this is something that I hope the video, you know, will fix. We'll be able to kind of get that out, and we can get this training into schools. So like I said, we had trained in year 1 550 providers, but to date we've trained almost 900. And it slowed down a little bit because of COVID and us doing Zoom calls and things like that. But the awesome thing with the internet, like we're doing tonight, is the ability to actually just hop online. And I've still been able to do some trainings, which has been great, and focus on some other deliverables and things for this program too. So we were able to train doctors, social workers, some school nurses. I believe our supervisor actually was able to in the first year train a couple. Let's see, some counselors, high-risk patients, like I said, university students. So people, like all staff, you know, as I would sift through all of the paperwork and everything that I had to enter, I would just see people from all backgrounds. So the interest of anyone in a facility, you know, anyone can run across a trafficking victim, whether it's a security guard or, you know, the front desk person. So it was really awesome to see the interest of everyone wanting to have a hand in stopping this. So this right here just shows we mainly focused our trainings in King County just because of the distance that when we were driving on the road, I think we all remember how bad traffic was. So there were a couple of trainings we did in Tacoma, and you know, it was maybe like a 2.5 hour drive down there, and we still made it and did our trainings down there. But we did a lot up in the Bellevue and Kirkland area and Seattle. And we've been reached out by communities outside of King County as well. For 2020, some of our goals were to develop the web-based training, which we did. We knocked out our data collection. We started to build a trauma-informed training. So I got a group of people together and did something like we did in the first year. So we created our fall steering committee and our subcommittees. For the trauma-informed training, I got together a lot of doctors and social workers. I wanted people who were kind of working on the front lines that could give me their impact and stories and research. And this training is almost done. So that's going to be really awesome to have a training to piggyback off of the human trafficking kind of 101 identification and response, and to really dig into trauma-informed care and like what that means so that our patients aren't re-traumatized by our actions. We had an outreach committee, so we had some really great nurses and doctors and community members that have connections within our community. And they just went out and just said, you know, we need to get these trainings out. Can Rebecca and Claudia get into your facility? And they were a great help doing that. And then we also wanted to get CE credits for the webinar. And so this is something that I'm currently working on. And the hope is to have this done in the next month as well. Some of the places that we trained in, we did a lot of evergreen trainings. I will say I did a lot at different sites. Highline, Harborview, Chi Franciscan Health, Community Health Plan of Washington, Swedish, and they start to list a few. There's a few others, but yeah, we got into a lot of different places. Universities were very tough to get into in the first couple of years. Luckily, with some of my contacts and just people in the community, we were able to get into UW, and I was able to. I initially had a huge training set up. They were promoting this to their whole ecology doctor. It was like an ecology week that they had for their pre-doctoral students, and they were going to make all of them go. And so to this training, and they had to cancel it. And last minute, they were like, "Can you do this on Zoom?" And so I said, "Of course," and we did it, and they were able to record it, and they were able to send it out to all the students who couldn't make it. So that's a great thing about making this sustainable. So they can record and keep this going, and then we have it recorded now, so we can keep it going. Claudia, in her first year, is so great at outreach. I give her this. She got into a couple newspapers, and they just were able to talk to the community about the impacts of this program. So that was really awesome. In the Kirkland Reporter and the ENA Connection. We have our flyer here that we would send out to all the healthcare sites when they were asking for our information, just to tell a little bit about like what we were doing in our program. And then this is kind of like a really big shift off of our program and our training. But I kind of wanted to go into COVID-19 a little bit. I know that we've all been affected by it in one way or another, whether it's affected how we work now, or how we live our daily lives. But survivors are really, really affected by this as well in marginalized communities. CCYJ, I believe they're the Center for Children and Youth Justice. Got the acronym down. They did a study and it showed that our children who are being trafficked are having to engage in riskier behavior. The youth are more vulnerable because they're either, on the internet now, and I think after a month we're seeing them back on the streets. It's more dangerous because, there's a lack of buyers right now, so they're just, the traffickers are willing to engage the youth in riskier behavior. And there has been an increase in internet-based exploitation because of this. And there has been also an increase in domestic violence by 21% in King County. People are stuck at home, unable to leave their trafficker. So with this information, I'm on the board of the Organization for Prostitution Survivors. And so, they're a direct service agency. So I've seen some of the things that they're able to do, and stolen youth. I contacted some people who work there as well, but they've done emergency funding. So they put on fundraisers to provide, whether it's housing, clothes, a cell phone, anything that a survivor needs during this time. They've been able to raise a really good amount of money, and they've had organizations match the funds, and they've really been able to get these advocates out and get resources to victims and our children who are being trafficked. So, and I've been able to kind of even discuss in my trainings today about how COVID-19 has affected, our children who are being trafficked. So yeah, I just want to say, thanks again to all you Rotarians, and, the money that was given to this program it's going to be sustainable for years to come. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you both, Virginia and Rebecca, for that informative presentation. There's an opportunity for questions and answers. There's a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And so you are welcome to use that right now to answer any questions that you may have, or share resources or suggestions. So we'll be opening it up. Oh, here's key takeaways. Does somebody want to cover that, or nope? Okay, so we're back. Virginia?
Yes. Can you still see the slide?
No, it's gone. So you probably want to click share again.
It says I'm sharing. That's so weird.
Rebecca, are you off sharing?
I believe so.
Okay, why don't you try one more time, Virginia, for everyone to gather those resources? That would be great.
Okay, just a second. I can do this. Share screen. Here. Share.
Okay, and go to the very end so they can see all the resources that you've identified.
Huh.
Okay.
That's so weird.
Hey, it looks like while you're figuring that out, let's answer some questions.
Thank you, Lisa.
Are opportunities for this coming to Snohomish County?
Opportunities for this training?
Yes.
I currently, let's see. Yes, I guess I will start with. We are willing to go to Snohomish County. If anyone wants to get in contact with me, I'm willing to do Zoom trainings out there, or send our video. So definitely.
Okay, another question is in regards to what is next for us in regards to this and COVID-19? What should we expect is going to happen in the upcoming months?
In regards to the trainings and how they will be disseminated, or trafficking victims?
I'm not clear on that. So let's see if we can get our question person Maybe that's a chat. Hold on.
I can try to answer both.
Any new needs? This is from Kathy. What is the next for us to do, especially in light of COVID? Any new needs? So how has COVID-19 changed this topic or aggravated it? And what are the new needs as a result of COVID-19?
I think right now, the advocates are really in our community are really trying to figure out how they can best serve our trafficking victims right now, remotely. So they're not able to a lot of times even go meet with them. So I guess I would say the best thing for, us to do or the Rotarians to do would be to donate, funds. I think that's probably the best thing to do right now. We have some great people working out there on the grounds, figuring out how they can change the way that they serve, trafficking victims and survivors. So yeah, I would say just providing funding for them.
So there's another question about where can we, if we are encountering a family or a child in crisis in this situation, what is a safe place, or even children who are vulnerable, what is a safe place, or where should we be directing these youth?
Yeah, so you can either call the human trafficking hotline and they'll direct you. I have told people this for a long time, like call the human trafficking hotline and they'll connect you to an advocate like in your area. If you give them the zip code, and an advocate will come out and, meet with the person, or come and talk to the provider or whatever their situation is. I have been told that sometimes they don't always.
That number is right here. This is your national trafficking hotline, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, and I've heard sometimes that number is not always the best to call. So I do know that the Organization for Prostitution Survivors, what are a couple of the other organizations? Oh gosh, I'm blanking right now. What are REST, Real Escape from the Sex Trade. Those are two organizations that have Genesis Project. They have 24/7 advocates. So sometimes it's directly better to call there, and they can handle that because they're in our communities.
There's also one in Bremerton, Scarlet Road.
Yep, Scarlet Road for up north.
So we have another question. As a hotel manager, we would love to have more and more training on how to look for signs to help notice sex trafficking and how to deal with law enforcement. So how are you working with the hotel industry, or do you have any information about that?
I do. We have great community partners called, their acronyms are BEST, Businesses Ending Sex Trafficking, I believe is what they stand for. So BEST is an organization that trains the hospitality industry and how to identify trafficking within their facilities. So they're a great organization to reach out to, and someone will come and provide those trainings specific to that need.
And then are you working with Dawson Place in Everett, the Child Advocacy Center? Do you work with child advocacy centers at all?
Me personally, we do education and prevention. Seattle Against Slavery does not do direct service. So if we come across a trafficking situation or one is brought to our attention, we would refer to either OPS or REST in our community. So I've heard of Dawson Place, but we don't directly work with them.
Great. Well, I think we answered all of our questions that we have. We'll pause for just a moment to see if anyone else has any lingering questions.
Go
ahead, Virginia.
I'd like to walk you through just a couple of the things I put out here. The first one is if this topic is sparking in your mind and in your heart and you want to stay in contact with me and connect with each other, the best spot for that is I have a Facebook group. It's called End Sex Trafficking Now with Seattle for Rotary. At this point, I have 167 members of this group. Most of them are Rotarians. Some of them are close friends and family. And that is where I've been putting all of the articles that I find, where I announce all of the service projects, and certainly it's a nice forum to connect with each other. So I would love to see some invitations from you all there. Second is the Rotary Action Group Against Slavery. So this is kind of your global network of Rotarians fighting slavery, not just sex trafficking, but also labor trafficking and other things. But it's all kind of interrelated, because if you're being trafficked for labor, 25% of those folks are also exploited for commercial sex. So they're definitely very tightly related. It is not expensive to be a member of this Rotary Action Group. I think a lifetime membership is, I don't know, $20 or maybe $50. And you get a really cool quarterly newsletter with all the amazing projects going on around the world. I meet them every year at the Rotary International Convention, except maybe this year. So that's an awesome place to go. Seattle Against Slavery can be called on to make a presentation at your Rotary Club, and topics that they're ready to present on are Human Trafficking 101, Trafficking Prevention for Schools. This is curriculum specific for middle school and high school kids about how to have appropriate romantic relationships and discuss themes of gender violence and where it starts and what it can look like. Also Tech for Good, that's a whole nother program that Seattle Against Slavery has going on. A lot of trafficking originates online, and they're using technology to fight against it in amazing ways. Rebecca, do you want to say a couple things about these programs that Seattle Against Slavery can talk about?
Yeah, sure. So I'll start with the technology program. So Liz Rush is the technology director, and there's probably like 10 or more things that the tech program does, but some of the top ones are that there's a bot that goes online, posts an ad, and kind of pretends to be a teenage girl. And when the buyer responds and has incriminated himself enough, the message is then transferred directly to a Seattle police officer to his cell phone, so he can actually continue that conversation and bust that guy. So that has worked, and it has resulted in arrests. The bot also goes in on all of these online platforms, which constantly develop, and there's new ones all the time, so they're always searching and finding them. And so the bot goes in and scrapes all of the numbers to all of the women who are being sold on there, and sends them all out text messages to every phone number. And it has an advocate's name and number, so that if they want to reach out and get help or resources, they can. So there, I can't remember the volume of calls, but it has made a huge impact in the people able to receive services and even know that they're out there. So it's really awesome they can combat that online. And then, so the buyers who are arrested go through a program that Eli Zucker runs. He's our men's accountability director. And he does a 10-week program where when the buyer is caught, the court mandates the buyer to go through this class that Eli provides. So it kind of teaches them about the harms of sex buying, and just kind of looking at it through a different lens, teaches them about, self-love, self-care, all of these things. And that group actually started their own group giving back to the community. So they actually help some of our direct service organizations, whether it's like setting up food or, giving back any way that they can. So it's changed the mindset of people who are harming our children and our women. So that's really amazing. We have trafficking prevention for schools, and that's what Tanya Fernandez runs. She about consent, about the harms of trafficking, about self-love, self-care, those kind of things. And so that's a really awesome program. She's starting to take that out of King County as well and teach other people to teach it. And then we have the Healthcare Alliance, which I've been running for the past, and then our Ending Exploitation Collaborative. We have Charlotte running that, Charlotte Lapp. It's a collaborative that kind of brings everything we're doing into a statewide effort. So that we're just not doing it in King County, because we're doing a great job here, but we need everyone else to, be able to duplicate what we have going on here. So I think, and then we had Claudia Lawrence. She recently moved on, but she was doing our community mobilization. So she was running our program out in Federal Way, just bringing trainings out into the community and all of that good stuff.
So we have 3 last things, just enough time. First of all, Virginia called Kathy Burnell for upcoming district funding. That came in through Chief. So that's always good to see.
Well, thank you, Kathy.
The other piece, there's 2 pieces that we're going to close the evening with. One is a question about what state agency do you connect with or you feed information to. And so maybe Rebecca, you want to take that. And then a question, Virginia, you might be interested in taking is demographic profile. Who are these buyers? How does this, there's question from someone from outside of the country. How is this so pervasive in the United States? But we don't have a lot of time.
I can help you answer that too.
Thank you. Yes, please. Rebecca, will you take both of those, please?
I will. Yeah, so I'll talk about the buyers first. So the buyers are typically 80% white men with a higher education. So they know the harms of buying. They typically make over $100,000 and they're buying marginalized women and children, children who don't look like them. That's the demographic of a buyer. And as far as an organization to connect with, I believe, I don't know if this is different than the question that we had talked about before when we were talking about the National Trafficking Hotline, but either REST, Real Escape from the Sex Trade, or OPS, the Organization for Prostitution Survivors, or Youth Care, I think that would be a good start.
And then what about the information that you do gather that you feed to state agencies or child welfare organizations? Who at the state gathers and collects this information?
Oh, the information that we gather?
Yes.
Our data collection is for our kind of purposes only. Typically the data there's an organization, Center for Youth and Justice. They're one of the main data collection agencies within this whole area. So, and also the Attorney General's office does their own research and their own studies, along with the University of Washington that we work pretty closely with too. So they're doing deeper studies with doctors and the community, all of the different communities. Our numbers are pretty small to share. So we leave it to some of the experts.
Wonderful. Okay, closing comments.
I have one more thing to share. Well, first of all, I want to be sure to say thank you, Rebecca, for all of your amazing work for the last 3 years and all the heart and intellect that you bring to this. And you are impacting so many people in so many powerful ways. And it is such an honor to partner with you and Seattle Against Slavery. I am incredibly grateful to you that you came out tonight to talk to us Rotarians and share so many important details about the work that we did together. I really, really appreciate it. I also want to let everybody on the call know that there'll be another webinar in the Festival of Training. It's Saturday morning at 10 a.m. There's a little confusion, 10:30 or 10 a.m. It's 10 a.m. This one is COVID-19 impact on sex trafficking. And the focus of this one is much more global. And the red light districts that you might have thought of when you first think of sex trafficking in India and the Philippines and places like that. It's a more of a global focus, but the headquarters and the leaders, the keynote presenters is Rescue Freedom, who is right here in Kirkland, Washington. And so I am getting excited about what us as Rotarians will be hooking up with Rescue Freedom about some possible international service projects to maybe go visit some of these safe houses and maybe partner with Rotary clubs in those international locations. So if you thought you heard it all today, you didn't. There's more to this story. And I hope you'll tune in with us Saturday morning at 10 a.m.
Yes, thank you. Please join me in thanking Virginia and Rebecca for this presentation and the information that they assembled for us. As a reminder, this recording will be available on District 5030 YouTube page. And as Virginia said, there are other presentations in the festival training schedule. So please take advantage of these wonderful learning opportunities. And I'd like to thank you all for joining us this evening.
Thank you.